Hello and welcome or welcome back to Read Becca for my weekly chatty catch up on my week in reading, everything I've read, everything I'm currently reading, and everything I'm looking forward to reading. It's been an interesting week. First off, I am working on my first ever vlog. Amazing. I started using some video editing software recently, and up till now, my phone does not allow a fixed frame rate, so when I combine videos on there, it messes up the sound. So usually when you're seeing videos combined or my clips from my week, you don't see my face because the sound is actually a frame or two off of what actually is taking place. So as long as I don't show myself or anyone else actually talking, you can't tell that. But as soon as I do, you could tell. So I never did that before. But now with my video editing software, it appears that it allows me to combine videos without having a problem. So I'm hopeful. I have done little tests here and there. We'll see if a super long video for a vlog does actually work. So this may all come to nothing and I'll be very disappointed if so. But it's going to be mostly a boring vlog with just books and cat footage a lot because I'm going hard into reading novellas. So I have already finished 3 out of 4 of these novellas for you all, and 1 in progress, nearly finished, and I'm hoping to finish at least 1 more. So it's gonna be a fast and furious reading of novellas for 2022 releases to get done before the Hugo Award voting at the end of April. So I'm hoping to get the one I've got in progress and another one at least this weekend done, and then I will wrap up that vlog and try to get the footage out next week. I have yet to see how horrible it is to try to edit a vlog. So we'll see. If it doesn't come out next week, you will know either it flopped or it took a lot more effort and it'll be coming later. But regardless, that's something to look forward to. As far as my books this week that I did actually finish, other than the novella project, I had a couple short things that were already in progress that I just kind of wrapped up. The first, I don't think I've actually mentioned that I had it in progress, is Taste by Stanley Tucci. And that was perfect. It was for my bestsellers project. I was so happy to spot it on the bestseller shelf and then immediately went and checked Lavie for a copy of the audiobook because I love to listen to memoirs when they're narrated by the author. And that is the case here. And it was there. It was in the Too Hot to Hold section, so yay. So I listened to it. It was fairly short, fairly quick moving. 90% of this is pretty low stakes, and it is just talking through sort of the food experiences that he's had that he has really strong memories for. And yet most people, when they talk about this, do talk about kind of the last 10%. And so I thought that his struggle with cancer affecting his tongue and his sense of taste, his ability to eat, was going to be a really big part of this book through the whole thing. And in fact, it's not. So I would say this is much more about the food, the impact that food has had on his life. We start all the way from his childhood and talking through the meaningful memories of comforting food in his home, the experience of being an Italian in America or an American in Italy, and that sort of not quite feeling the sense of place, and his associations with different foods that were unusual depending on the place that he was from or he was in. And I think that was just so well handled. It's also full of recipes, so if you want to get ideas for meals based on what he cooks, you're going to probably need a lot of butter, lots and lots of butter, but really just delicious foods that I kind of want to buy a physical copy now so I can save some of those recipes and try them out. So it was just lovely, and I adore Stanley Tucci as a person. That last 10% tackling his medical journey was really brief, and it felt kind of the same way the rest of the memoir felt, in that it is keeping kind of surface level. It really just tackled, we found out my diagnosis, and then here's what happens next, and then this happened, and then I was there, and here's the treatment I went through, and then him having to go through not being able to eat food, losing his sense of taste, and the feelings of being at mealtime and not being able to enjoy that with the people around him, and that sense of community that was lost is definitely there, but it's not the focus of the book, I would say. It's moved through very quickly and matter-of-factly, and the sense of gratitude that he has for the people that were around him and caring for him, the medical professionals caring for him, is definitely there. So I think that's really the focus of that last 10%. But it feels kind of tacked on. So I didn't love that. I think it would have been fine with or without, because I just enjoyed hearing him discuss his love and passion for food so much and the way that it's impacted his whole life. So great one, yet another winner for my bestsellers. I can't seem to have any problems with this bestsellers project that I thought was going to be like really me trying out difficult books that I didn't necessarily want to read. So far I've loved all of them. So I need to put my feelers out a little bit more, I think. The second thing that I read this week was an ebook of Larceny in Liverpool, a cozy Beatles mystery. And this was not something I think I would normally like spot on my own, but I got a recommendation last year from March Mystery Madness via Beach Bum Bookworm, who is the queen of cozy mysteries. And it was great. I really did enjoy this one. It was so entertaining. And as it says on the tin, it is a Beatles themed mystery. So we're following Helen, who at the present time is kind of older, and a detective, or the son of a detective she knew, shows up at her home with some questions about this theft that happened when she was young, when she was in her teens. So it seems like, you know, quite a long time has passed. So she's recounting what exactly happened, and she knew this investigator's father during this time when she was just starting out as a volunteer with the Beatles fan club. And at the time, she was kind of just learning the ropes. She was totally a new hire, and something happened. There was a theft, and she got caught up in the mystery. So we have her as this amateur sleuth who is kind of in touch with the police, but not really working with them. So definitely has that cozy element. Her getting to know the Beatles, they definitely are prominent side characters, though they were not involved in actually solving any mysteries. I think that would be fun, maybe later along in the series, because I think there are quite a few books in the series. But it was a novella length, so it was kind of short, quick, easy to read, very, very cozy, and entertaining, hilarious at moments. And I just really enjoyed the idea of the plot. There was no murder, so if you are someone who likes cozies without murder, this is a good one to go to. So heartily enjoyed that one. I'm very glad Beach Bum Bookworm recommended it to me. Then I think we're done with stuff I finished, because as I said, I finished a ton of novellas this week, but not much else. As far as what's in progress, I have still my middle grade March selection. I'm 2/3 of the way through, and my mammoth selection, Byzantium by Lawhead. I didn't make very much progress on this week. I had hoped, but I only had 2 days where I was reading other stuff beyond my novellas, so they're on hold. We'll eventually get to it. And then my short fiction stuff, I have Tales from Gavagans Bar, and I have The Best of World SF Volume 2 still. So those all are longer projects. I'm not overly worried about the fact that we're just chipping away at them slowly. However, for this coming week, I have a predicament. So on audio, I have started Spear by Nicola Griffith, and that is shorter, so I think I will finish that, and I don't know what I'm going to get into after that. But as far as my April reading, oh dear, you've seen my TBR. That was my last video that was posted, and it is a pile. Most of the stuff I do own, so I'm not too worried about like needing to hit deadlines or anything, like, but I'm definitely going to get somewhat slowed down because unexpectedly my pre-order hold for The House with Good Bones, the new T. Kingfisher release, actually just came in. So I wasn't expecting that. I was planning to freeze it. I was 13th in line, so I thought, oh, for sure, you know, the library always takes a couple days at least to package them up, like do all the wrapping and stickers and stuff. But in fact, it was waiting on the day it came out, which was last Tuesday. So I have until Monday to pick it up. So I'm gonna pick it up on Monday to draw out however long I can to finish things up. And then I will have to read it in 2 weeks because there are holds waiting after me. So we will see. If I don't get through it, I will not be heartbroken or anything. I'm sure I will be able to get it back later. not a problem. My library is always great. So yeah, that is definitely going to be on the docket for this week, when I was planning to be front loading with a couple of the bigger books that I have on my TBR. So won't be getting to the TBR books as quickly as I had hoped, unfortunately. So speaking of my library, I guess that's a good point to jump into the library happening this week. If you missed out on my community post, I did post there, very upset. I'm fine, but annoyed at my state as per usual. So there's been a lot of kind of misinterpretation and misinformation about like why this is happening, but overall, our state house voted to remove state funding from public libraries in our state. Yeah, so that is horrible and very disappointing and heartbreaking and all of the bad words. Yeah, so I'm very annoyed with my state right now. Ultimately, my library will be fine. That's a small fraction of the funding that they get. So my library will be okay. It will probably not affect them at all, but it will affect other smaller libraries in the state much worse. So this all happened, though, as a retaliation against the library, because the library is currently undergoing a lawsuit to protect librarians from a previous ruling in our state that went into effect last fall that I discussed, wherein for specifically school libraries, they could not display or give out any pornographic material. And that's obviously already not allowed. It's not legal for adults to just go around handing out porn. However, many schools did kind of proactively pull stuff. There have been attempts to say that certain librarians have been in violation of this. So it's really caused a lot of legal problems, and the librarians are, needing protection from that. And obviously they're not actually targeting porn. What we're seeing is that LGBT graphic novels specifically are the target here. So overwhelmingly expected. That's what the case has been all along, not just in my state, but all over the place. It's the same with all of these book ban efforts. So this defunding is basically the state house saying, and this is direct from someone, I'm paraphrasing what they said, but this was their reasoning, was that effectively they don't want to fund the lawsuit against the state itself, which is already not the case. So it's in bad faith. As far as I know, the library systems that are pursuing this legal matter are not using state funds for that, because of how the budgeting works. So it's all, false and very much, just trying to break down our libraries and the strength of our librarians even more. And it is just devastating to see that happen when I love my library so much. And as I said, they won't be destroyed by this. They will survive all of this, but it is just so horrifying to see the way that is being normalized. We've seen retaliation in other states where businesses don't go along with what the governor wants to see happen, and using politics or using government power to retaliate is kind of inherently a fascist thing. To suppress ideas that you don't like is just horrifying. So I'm seeing my state increasingly become fascistic, and I've spoken out about this over and over, and I do hope that this will continue to push people away from that, to make people wake up and see that that's what's happening here, and that they've allowed, by voting in these individuals, this sort of power creep to happen. So that's my ramble for this. I think that's all I have to say, really. It's just horrifying, and I will not cease to be devastated by it. So I'm hopeful, though. I do have a forward view toward things turning around. We do have a vote coming up this week, in fact, not for any major roles, but I will be out there voting as usual, including school board. So that's a minor role that does have major implications on things like book bans. Making sure that you're paying attention to school board votes is very important. So I will be doing that. So anyway, other things for this week. my TLS, I got a little backlogged apparently because they sent me 2 this week. I'm still not caught up to current, but this time around, I just had one article that I wanted to talk about, and it's about, or I think it's a kind of a review or just a sort of look into the upcoming book or newly released book, Plante Sapiens, and it sounds so fascinating. I've seen it a couple times when the proof and the final copy came through on Steve Donahue's channel, but it sounds like a fascinating way of looking at the intelligence of plants. So there's a lovely picture. Human consciousness is taken as the gold standard against which consciousness in other species is assessed. But what if this is flipped on its head? What if the benchmark was minimal consciousness, a property found throughout the tree of life and inherent to living? In this scenario, subjective experience must have existed since cellular life evolved as a necessity for interacting with the environment. It is not something restricted to a small group of privileged brain-owning organisms. In terms of evolutionary history, consciousness has effectively been there all along. It is not something that gets switched on at some point in the history of life on Earth. Human consciousness is part of a continuum that, following this logic, includes plants. One can only know thyself by knowing others, Calvo tells the reader. Calvo is the author of Plante Sapiens. We have to think into the experiences of other organisms dramatically different from ourselves, however rudimentary or complex they might be. So different, in fact, that their experiences might be generated without any of the familiar animal thinking machinery. No brains, neurons, or synapses. Such a view will require general acceptance of wider, non-neural meanings for words such as memory, mind, thought, communicate, learn, and decide. So, fascinating stuff. I'm dying to read it. The book is Plante Sapiens, and it just is such a vibe that resonates with me, because I think most science fiction readers also think about this in terms of finding life outside of our planet, because we are only searching in a limited way in how we understand life to exist. And what if it exists out there and we're just not looking for the right criteria? So my brain is certainly, tuned into that, and I'm very against anthropocentrism. So this taps right into my interests. So really, really looking forward to pick that one up. All right, wrapping up then, I think the last thing is recommendations. So I only have really 2 recommendations. Number 1 is just the BookTube Prize. So BookTube Prize Octafinals has finished as of April 1st today. And so we're moving on into the semifinals. So you can see both the announcement of all of the eliminations and the new semifinals round on the official BookTube Prize channel. But I love seeing everybody's wrap-ups. People vlog throughout and then release their vlogs at the end. People will put out ranking videos from their judging, because everyone has to stay hush-hush until it's all publicized. And so those are all sweeping BookTube. So go watch some BookTube Prize videos if you have not. The other one is an author interview that I watched. This was a virtual event with the author of The Great Escape, Saket Soni. And this was fascinating and not something I had ever heard of before. It's just a nonfiction account of this man. The author of Saket Soni is an immigrant himself and came to the US for school and then got involved in community and labor organization action. And so he got swept up into something pretty wild where a company recruited hundreds of people from India to come, promising them sort of this amazing dream that they could come to the US and have everything they wanted. And they had to pay an exorbitant amount of money. And so what actually happened is they were human trafficked into labor camps to work oil rigs and in the US in the mid-2000s, so just like 15 years ago, which is pretty wild. I don't remember hearing about that. You would think that would have been huge news. But I mean, they were kept under guard and living crammed into these terrible labor camps. And so hearing him talk about that and the situation of getting engaged in that fight was so gripping. So I had not heard anybody talking about this book before and was so intrigued by it that I really want to pick it up next time my TBR has space. So that's one I will definitely be getting to as well. So Plante Sapiens and The Great Escape are 2 very high on my radar. So that is it for me today. Thank you so much for watching.